You are now watching the Ball and Beats podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back here to another episode of the Ball and Beats podcast, episode 128. This Cam's taking a nice sip of that B&B water in his mug. Spencer and Cam with me today on this amazing, beautiful panel. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. It's a good day. It's snowy outside.
Yeah.
Look at the snow. It's cute in December. January, okay. Let's get to February, man. Like, let's just stop.
The worst part is the ice.
And it's just gray out.
That's what I was going to say. The gray's the issue.
It's just so annoying, man.
Need to get some of that vitamin D. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Need to touch grass. Absolutely. You know, I think there's some people that definitely need to touch grass for sure. You know what I'm saying? But I digress. As you know, today we have a jam-packed show. You know, we're starting off our NFL free agency takes, looking down positions. We're gonna give you guys some of our bold takes. That's later on in the show. But today we're gonna start it off with hockey's doing it better than basketball.
Finally a hockey segment. I mean, like,
Hockey is doing it better than basketball. I'm gonna give the floor here to, you know, the hockey connoisseur in Spencer Gallup, and Spencer, take it from here.
Yeah, the Four Nations face-off has been an absolute hit for the NHL. It has blown the NBA All-Star Game out of the water. You're seeing people, players, everybody's caring about the Four Nations. And even the teams that didn't make it, Sweden, Finland, like they were trying hard, and Sweden beat the United States. Were they kind of like, you know, resting some of their players, some of their injuries? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. These players are playing hard, and that's the thing about hockey. Hockey players have always tried hard. The NHL All-Star Game has been up and down. They should just replace it with this. I'm serious. This should be a recurring thing. Keep adding nations. Add Russia. Russia would be a great add for this. Add some more European countries. You could make this really interesting. And I think the biggest thing that it takes away is, like, you got people who don't even care about hockey who are going to be watching the championship game tonight between the U.S. and Canada. This is going to be cinema. If you and the first game was cinema, you start out with 3 fights in 9 seconds.
That was nuts.
It was an unbelievable start to a hockey game, and it got everybody hype. It got me hype. I was so excited. And you know, the U.S. ended up winning that game 3-1. Connor Hellebuck had a hell of a game. But this game tonight's gonna be Canada's pissed. You guys realize that if Canada loses this game, their nation's gonna go into an emergency. Like, they have nothing for the U.S. Yeah, like, the U.S. owns Canada. They really do. In every single thing except
Apologies to our
hockey.
Canadian viewers. We know Saskatchewan loves us. You know what I'm saying? But it's all right.
Hey, man. Sorry. It's true. Shout out Windsor right across the border, But we do. Any sport we beat Canada at. We own Canada.
They're little brother. You know what I'm saying?
They are little brother. And I don't want to go into the political side of things because I could make fun of Canada for a whole segment if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. This game tonight's going to be fantastic. The Canadians are pissed off. They want to beat the Americans, and I think a little bit does have to do with politics. Obviously, the tariffs, the annexation of Canada is a joke. Canada's not going to be a part of the United States. But the tariffs are something, and the Canadians don't like it, and that's why they're booing the national anthem. I still think it's dumb. Last time I checked, hockey players aren't making policies. You're not having Dylan Larkin or Matthew Tkachuk out here signing executive orders.
But here's the thing, when it comes to stuff like that, there's still representation at the end of the day. So
they are,
But here's the thing: regardless, I almost feel like they would boo it anyway because there's been this natural rivalry between the U.S. and Canada in a lot of sports. So I feel
it's
like
a hockey game. Like,
it's a hockey game.
Don't be booing national anthems. I don't care if you don't agree with President Trump or anything like that. He's the president. He's going to make decisions people like. He's going to make decisions people don't like, and that's just how things are. I mean, you can't. He's the president. There's nothing we can do. And for all the stuff that he said about Canada, I mean, so what, man? Like. It's a hockey game at the end of the day.
It's
and
I get
you are a representation of your country. But last time I checked, Matthew Tkachuk's not signing executive orders. Austin Matthews is not trying to put tariffs on Canada.
Maybe he was. You didn't know. You
He
didn't know.
plays for Toronto.
Just
I
because he
mean,
plays for Toronto doesn't mean, he might not really be.
That's the one thing to watch out for
know.
tonight. Matthews in a big game in Boston. Yeah, it's not very good. I can tell you that. The Leafs tend to not win in Boston a whole lot, so let's hope that changes tonight. But yeah, for average fans of sports, the Four Nations face-off has been like a uniting thing. Everybody's going to be tuning into this game tonight if you like sports at all. Like anything. Like even if you don't like hockey, you're going to watch. It's the US, it's Canada. It's a international rivalry. The last time these teams played was in 2010, and Sidney Crosby had an overtime winning goal against the US, and at the end of the day, this is going to be such a fun game. And I hope it lives up to the expectations. I hope we see fights. I hope it's a close game. I hope it's not a blowout either way, because I just want a fun hockey game like the first one. And, man, it's going to be exciting. That's all I can say. I mean, little brother up north has been talking a lot for a long time about their sport. Well, we beat them at their sport in their country. And, you can say what you want. Oh, Canada doesn't have good goaltending. Their forward group. Like, Canada probably has the best overall team except goaltending. Cale Makar, Devon Toews, you have a line of Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, and Nathan MacKinnon. That is unbelievable. That is one of the best lines a country has had ever, probably. You have the best player in the sport, Connor McDavid. You have one of the best players of all time in Sidney Crosby. And you have one of the best players, in the Western Conference in Nathan MacKinnon. Hey, man. The U.S. but the U.S. has the upper hand in goaltending. Connor Hellebuck is way better than Jordan Binnington. But I'm going to tell you what, it's not going to matter. I hope we see fights. I hope we see booing, all this stuff. Because it's what makes it fun. Like, at the end of the day,
that's exactly what makes it fun.
It's what makes it fun. We don't have passion like this in the NBA where you have LeBron James saying, I don't feel like it. My left hip is a little sore. I'm going to just not play in the All-Star game. You would never, ever, ever see that in the NHL. Ever. And that's why nobody cares about the NBA All-Star game anymore. Because nobody tries. And there's no passion in it. This Four Nations thing has blown the NBA out of the water. And has shown why the NHL is so damn fun to watch. So,
it's kind of funny how I have a hockey man and a basketball man, and I'm the in-between guy right here. So, Cam, the floor is yours. How do you feel about the attacks at the NBA? One, but two, is there some truth to the matter? I think there is, but that's my own personal opinion. What about you, Cam?
This is sad. We're having this conversation right now as the NBA was superior for years. And now it's in question. And should it be in question? Yeah, I think it should. Now, the Four Nations thing, I'm not aware. So can you key me in on that a little bit? What is that?
So basically, you have the U.S., Canada, Finland, Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
It was a round robin and then a championship game. So basically, you had all four teams play each other.
Okay.
And then there was a point system. You get 3 points for a regulation win,
Okay.
2 points for an overtime win, 1 point for an overtime loss, 0 points for a loss. Whoever had the most amount of points, the top two teams played in the championship. It ended up being Canada, United States, like everyone thought it would. Sweden and Finland are decent. They have good players. They don't compare to the U.S. and Canada. And at the end of the day, the round robin game between the United States and Canada was one of the most viewed non-Stanley Cup Finals hockey games in a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody tuned in. Everybody talked about it.
Okay.
And it was during the 3-point contest, the dunk contest, and whatever the hell the skills competition was. So, shout out Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama.
Respect for Victor Wembanyama, by the way, though.
Respect my MVP preseason winner. Sorry. Still love you, buddy. I know I hated you when the Pistons didn't get him, but you're a hell of a player. But
he still calls him his French fry to this day.
No, I can't anymore. He's a damn good player.
I'm gonna get you a Detroit Pistons Wembanyama jersey.
You do.
Custom.
I'm gonna get you a Myles Garrett Pittsburgh Steelers jersey. We'll call it even. But yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, so what would you think if the All-Star game was, for the NBA, was nations versus each other?
You know what you could do? And I know, and they would have to do some ramifications. Do U.S. versus the world.
Exactly.
That would be a
Yes.
really fun matchup. You'd have like Shea, Giannis, Jokic on one team, Wembanyama, and then the U.S. you got Curry and LeBron, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. That would be a really fun basketball game to watch.
Yeah.
Once players put their country on their jersey,
It's different.
It's different. You saw it in the U.S. Olympics last year with Durant, and
Curry.
they had like a documentary come out or something where
Just
they
came
followed
out
him.
this week.
Kevin Durant cried about talking about playing for Team USA. Putting the crest of your country on your jersey means something to these players, and I think the NBA, if they did that, oh yeah, that would be really fun to watch. I mean, I don't think you could just do certain countries because, you know, Team France would be only Wembanyama, Team Slovenia, you know, any of those countries. USA versus the world, and then you can still do dunk contests, make it actual NBA players, please. A 3-point contest and a skills contest. I still think you can do that, but instead of having just the game between the East and the West,
This year they had it between really
Chuck, Shaq, and
Chuck,
Kenny.
Shaq, and Kenny, and it was
ridiculous.
weird.
Yeah, that was.
that's ridiculous.
I like the concept,
Yeah.
but it was mismanaged. I'd
For
say.
sure.
Yeah.
To me, what they need to do, besides just USA and the world, I think what they need to do is kind of go back to 2020.
Mm-hmm.
The 2020 All-Star game was probably the last good one, where they had it split up in quarters. The quarters like ended with the score there, and like whatever the score was like an amount to charity or
Yep.
something
Yeah.
like that. There was also, you know,
I think that's when Dame
it
won
was a very
All-Star.
impactful year too, because
MVP.
that was the year of Kobe Bryant's passing as
Yeah.
well. So I think a lot of people were also tuned in for those reasons too. But to me, the NBA, there's a lot of tweaking they got to do with this All-Star game weekend, and definitely with the dunk contest. Granted, Mac McClung, I mean, he jumped over a car. You know what I'm saying?
No, that was
cleared a
actually really
car.
cool.
He cleared a car.
That'll be, I mean, you want to know how much money he's made? And I think I saw a stat. You want to know how much money he's made in like 3 years of being in the G League or what? How long it's been?
Probably like $250K.
It was $175,000. You want to know how much he made Saturday night? $315K, I think. Like, I know it was old, and I know like it's, you know, like get Aaron Gordon back in there. Like throw some actual NBA players in there.
I mean,
Throw Zach LaVine in there.
we
like,
did see.
and it was really cool dunk. I'll give Mac McClung credit. Like I clowned on him last year. I'll continue to clown on him because he's a G League player. Didn't even realize he played for Orlando's G League team.
The Osceola Magic?
Yeah, nobody cares.
What do you mean no one cares?
It's the
development.
NBA All-Star game. It's the NBA dunk contest, not the G League dunk contest.
That's fair.
That's fair.
That's fair.
That's fair.
It's a very
But-
fair take.
I got to give him credit. That was a hell of a dunk on the car. Now, I didn't watch it because I was watching U.S.-Canada, but I saw it afterwards. Come on, like I forgot that Cade Cunningham was in the 3-point contest. I didn't even see if he got one around knocked out. I didn't even care. I saw that.
Hey, shout out
Tyler
my boy I'm
Hero
wearing
won
underneath
it.
me right now. You know what I'm saying? Shout
I
out
saw that
Hero.
Tyler Hero won it. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I couldn't tell you who won the skills competition. I didn't pay
I don't
attention.
know either.
I actually don't know.
I couldn't.
As
tell you
a
who
ball
won-
fan, I really don't know.
I couldn't tell you who won the skills competition. I just know that Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama
got disqualified,
disqualified because they just threw up threes.
Mhm.
Well,
They did it
threw-
smartly.
Well,
they did.
Maybe
They
if they did it fairly,
But-
maybe we'd be in a better spot right now.
Like
No, just
I know in years
consequences for your
past, like
actions, you know.
the NBA to me, I like the NBA. It's not my favorite league. It might be in top 4. It might be the bottom, in my opinion. I still like basketball, and some of that is because my team has been so awful the past few years. Now they're good.
That's fair.
They're pretty solid. I mean, when you watch a team that wins 14 games every year, you're not going to want to watch the NBA.
You're not watching.
No, no, you're just not.
No.
You're not getting any of them free 5
But
wings
to
from
me,
Wingstop
it's like
either. At
they
all.
can do they can do that with the All-Star game, and like the NHL did it perfectly. You have so many people who are going to tune into this game tonight, and while this is going to be out afterwards, and hopefully the U.S. wins because it'd be fun to make fun of Canada. They haven't won a Stanley Cup in 30 years, and then now they can't beat the U.S. at their own sport. It'd be pretty hilarious. But the NBA needs to do some changes. But then again, you can see the same for the NFL. The NFL, the Pro Bowl games, they're really stupid. Like nobody cares about them.
Isn't it flag now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's flag football, and then there's a bunch of
like
Pro Bowl
7 on
games like
7 flag, yeah.
dodgeball and like throwing the. I don't know.
All
They
I'm
need to
saying
fix
is-
some things.
All I'm saying is for the Pro Bowl, the best thing for me was either like the kicking competition they used to do with the kickers.
That was cool.
With like the Connect Four or Tic Tac Toe.
Yeah,
I
and
think
you
it was
had-
Tic Tac Toe.
yeah.
It was Tic Tac Toe. But I miss them old school days where the quarterbacks were like doing drills while
Kick, punt,
I miss
pass.
I
Yes.
miss actually seeing a
That was
football
fire.
game. And
That
I know
too.
it's never going to happen again, but I miss seeing the best of the best going out there and doing, and I know that they don't care about it anymore.
rest in peace to Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
Like, you had such fun Pro Bowl games back then. But we're never going to get that, so.
No.
But the NBA can change that. And I think that the NBA, if they do it right, they can get an audience. And I think that with this Four Nations thing, they kind of got screwed over because Saturday night US-Canada, people are going to want to watch that even if they're not hockey fans because, you know, US Canada, it's a rivalry. It's an international rivalry.
Yeah.
But Sunday was the NBA's day to shine because that was the All-Star game. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch a single second of it.
It's fair. It's fair. You know, quickly, I want to pivot back to Cam here because I saw a little earlier PK Subban. He was on ESPN talking with First Take and Get Up about the NHL and the NBA, and we've kind of hit those topics here.
Yeah.
The NHL, they play with passion every time, specifically when it comes to their country. You notice that still with the NBA, but with their actual regular season product, the All-Star product, it's not there. And Cam, you know, he was dogging the NBA big time, talking about, you know, we need MJ and Kobe back.
I don't completely agree with that, but I also can see. But I'll let Cam talk. I'll go after him.
Saying we need old players back is probably not the way to fix it, but
Saying, like, their mentality and the way they play.
so we need more grit is what I'm
Yes.
hearing. It's not wrong, but 82 games I think is becoming too much. They are a little soft in a sense. There's players who nowadays you have that grit player more. It's more noticeable now than it was then. They were just kind of dirty back then, but now it's the grit player. So I think it has become soft. I don't think that's a reason why people don't watch. I just think 82 games, it has no meaning.
It's a
The
long
thing is,
season.
Nothing
it is
has
a
a
long
meaning
season,
until
but is
the
it,
playoffs.
Is it really the 82 games that's doing it, or is it the amount of money these players are getting paid to not play with injuries? And this was another thing he said. He was like, are you hurt or are you injured? Because he said hockey players play through both sometimes.
Well, hockey's more skillful, first off. I mean, they're pretty much on skates running. That takes crazy amount of skill. So I don't know how NBA isn't on that level of NHL. I will agree with you there.
It is.
'Cause
I'm gonna be honest. I still think the NBA is a bigger league than the NHL.
Yeah.
They get way more nationwide,
For sure.
worldwide viewers. The NBA might be the biggest league out of the Power Four.
how many teams
worldwide.
are
Other
in
than
the
the
NHL?
NFL, I think the NFL and the NBA are close, but it's a lot bigger than the NHL in my opinion.
How many teams are in the NHL?
32.
32.
Okay, so about the same.
Yeah. So, and they're going to be expanding too. So, no, but it's the fact that I think the NBA, they are a bigger league than the NHL. They get way more viewership nationwide, worldwide, all that stuff. I think they just need a different way of honing it because I think they can get even more viewership or more people to pay attention because I think there is something to be saying about a passion issue. You got like Joel Embiid. He hasn't played in Denver since, 2016?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, I will say this: that I don't know if there's something behind the scenes with that with Embiid because we've seen it in the NFL. Ryan Clark had sickle cell anemia, and being in high elevation that could play some
Yeah.
issues. So maybe there's an underlying coincidence there with Embiid. I'm not trying to say that that's the case. I'm not trying to dive into his health issues.
Oh,
but
yeah.
that's a legit possibility.
Oh,
you
100%.
know? So
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it's a mile-high city. You got a lot of even NHL players. Some players don't play when they have to play the Avalanche, but they need to find a way to stop all the load management.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to be said about the contract these players get. They say, "Oh, I got all my money. I don't have to try nearly as hard as I did a few years ago when I was trying to get this contract." You know, you got these big name players who are going for the supermax, the max contracts, these rookies who are trying to play through their contract. I think there's a thing to be said about them. Once they get their contract, they go off the gas a little bit. Hockey players, the best hockey player in the world makes $12 million a year. McDavid makes $12 million a year. Hockey player, the salary cap is a much bigger issue in hockey than it is in the NBA. You don't have luxury tax in the NHL. And I think there's something to be said about that. Now, however, like I said, the NBA is a much bigger league. but they have to hone their viewership because it has declined in recent years. And I think a little bit of that has to do with there's no lead guy. There's no it player anymore.
Right now, yeah.
Right now. And LeBron, yes. But LeBron's been the it player for forever. He's LeBron. He might be the greatest of all time.
I think people are getting bored.
There's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
I completely agree, yeah.
There's something also to be said about not just the main guy, but not really a dynasty, quote-unquote, team that's great. I mean, Boston could be that team. They could
Yeah.
become that team. But Jason Tatum is one of the most hated stars in the NBA right now, too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
People can say what they want,
Including
but when
myself,
the Warriors
bona
went
fide
to
hater over here.
5
Just
straight
kidding.
NBA finals, people watched.
Yes.
Yeah.
A ton of people watched the Warriors when they went to 5 straight. You know, they lost. The 2016 NBA Finals might have been my favorite series of all time.
In any sport.
In any
Yeah.
sport. It was so fun to watch.
Never
and that
happened.
Game 7, I remember I wasn't even a Cavs fan. I was cheering for the Cavs.
Me
I
too.
was cheering for the Cavs,
Because
too.
it was such a fun series. It was back and forth. It was a tight-knit game. The Oracle. Oracle was one of the hardest places to play
Yes.
in.
Yep.
And I don't think the Chase Center's anywhere near what the Oracle
It is
was.
not.
No.
But that's one of my favorite series to watch of all time in any sport. And I think the NBA has an issue of there's not like that environment anymore.
They're having an identity crisis.
Yeah.
There's no that guy, like you said. Like, nobody's taken over the league yet.
No.
There's no keys
We
handed
thought it would
over.
be Anthony Edwards. He's been very good.
Luka. It's just hasn't been
Luka
it.
hasn't gotten Luka's one of the best players, but
People
he
thought
hasn't
Giannis
become the
could
it
have.
guy.
Yeah, Giannis.
Yeah.
Giannis, Jokic.
Maybe Wembanyama. I mean, Wembanyama, seriously, he's 25 and 11.
As long as
in
he
his
can
second
bounce back
year.
from this
It's
blood
unbelievable.
clot issue. If this is just a one-off, hopefully it is just a one-off.
Prayers.
Because that's very serious. It ended Chris Bosh's career in Miami. So hopefully it is just a one-off with Victor. But yeah, there is no guy. There's a few guys we thought. We already listed
The
them.
NHL knows who their guys are. It's Connor McDavid. It's Sidney Crosby. It's seeing if Ovechkin can reach the threshold of overpassing Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record, which I think he only has like 21 to go.
He's not far off.
He's not far off at all, and he's gonna get it. I am fully confident he will. The NHL has narratives. They have rivalries. I mean, U.S. Canada. It's not even an NHL rivalry, but people. Canada doesn't like the U.S. U.S. doesn't like Canada. And I think if you go on Twitter, you go online. I mean, you'll see it. You see people on ESPN talking about it. PK Subban, and he's a Canadian, and he's like taking the American side. But I think the NBA, you don't have rivalries, you don't have narratives anymore, you don't have the Oracle-esque environments to where going in, you're going to be in hell. It's going to be hard to, one, make a free throw, two, organize what you're going to do, pick and rolls, any of that. And I don't think the NBA has that.
The only one I could possibly see that could become that environment, it's really two, and they're both in the East. It's Boston and New York when they're the greatest.
Philly, when they're good, is really hard to win in. Wells Fargo. But Boston, I completely agree.
Boston,
And
TD
New
Garden,
York.
and New York
Yes.
if they are the top.
Cleveland,
of the East.
somewhat, too.
Underrated Sacramento.
That's a hard place.
Yeah.
The
They
beam,
light
light
that
the
beam.
beam.
Yeah. They ain't lighting the
place
beam
is
too much.
crazy.
I mean,
No.
the guy who was lighting the
Rough
beam
year
is
for the Kings.
He's gone.
he's gone. So it's all
Shout
right.
out
Though.
Sabonis. Poor guy.
He deserves better than
He does.
Sacramento.
So much
100%. Let's pivot to baseball here real quick. We just got some news about umps, not humans, in spring training.
God, this is my type of episode. Hockey and baseball.
The
What am I gonna
robots.
do with myself?
Spencer's having a field day right
Having
now.
a field day.
Spencer, Contavious Caldwell Pope Gallup. Shout out KCP. What you feeling about this,
I love it.
automated umps?
I love it. I'm gonna be honest. You won't. I love it because players won't be able to complain about balls and strikes anymore. You won't have an Angel Hernandez.
That's
who's
the guy I was
calling
trying
a
to think
strike
of.
5 feet outside the box or right in the dirt. You won't have him calling strikes. And I think the CBA, their contract ends in 2027. I don't think that they will have it in the regular season until 27, or 28, I should say. It ends that year. So 2020, I think, would be the more realistic time frame of where they would start for good having it. But spring training, they can do that. I think I really enjoy it. I think it's a really good thing for the sport of baseball, just like the pitch count. and you're gonna have players that can't complain about balls and strikes anymore. They'll have umpires, but the umpires, if they're wrong, the guy can go like this. They'll go to the booth. They'll see if it's a ball or strike. And I completely agree with it. I think if if you're in the bottom of the ninth and it's a bases loaded 3-2 and you got a ball outside the zone, low and away, and he calls it a strike, you just lost the game because of a referee's mistake, or an umpire's mistake, I should say. You can review that and then you win the game. I think it's a very good thing for the sport of baseball. Baseball's done really good with changing their rules the past few years. I give a lot of crap to Rob Manfred. He's a scumbag, but he's done a few things right. And the pitch count and or the pitch com, I should say, and with now implementing a robo-ump, I think is very good for the sport of baseball.
Speaking of Rob Manfred as well, you were talking about arguably the worst commissioner at sports.
Yes.
They did ask him some questions recently about the LA Dodgers and the salary cap situation that doesn't exist in Major League Baseball.
No.
And he kind of discussed a little bit about maybe at the next collective bargaining agreement, maybe there's something they could work on. And he said that's one of the top of his lists to try and fix in baseball. What's your take on that?
I think that, there needs to be something set, because I think that it is terrible for the sport of baseball to have a team like the Dodgers who are spending. They went out and spent $1 billion last year. They on Yamamoto and on Shohei Ohtani. $700 million for Ohtani, $300 for Yamamoto. And and they're just deferring all this money. Ohtani's going to be getting paid millions and millions of dollars once he retires. He's only getting paid $2 million, I think, for 10 years. And then after that, he's getting like a boatload of money, a brink truck of money at his doorstep every single year when he's done playing baseball. It's ridiculous. The Dodgers are smart, though. I think it's ruining the sport of baseball, but at the end of the day, any of these teams can go out and spend $1 gazillion. Like, there's no limitations. You just have small market teams who are cheap. Like the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates are going to ruin Paul Skeens because they're not going to pay him in time. The Tigers, they better pay Tarek Skubal or he's going to go to the open market and everybody's going to throw $400 million his way because he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best. And if the Tigers don't want to pay him, somebody will. My biggest issue with that is if you keep having teams like the Dodgers and the Mets, who make up, I think, like 25% of the entire payroll in baseball, $700 million contracts back-to-back years by the Mets and the Dodgers, you're going to have a fallout year. I mean, you're going to have a year where it's everybody's getting all this money. You don't have the owners can't keep up, the players can't keep up, and they're going to need a buyout. And I think it's going to come down to that. Now, the CBA, like I said, ends in 2027. That would be the year that they would have a buyout year. Do I think it happens? I think the MLB is going to fix it. I think they're going to get something done, just not with payroll right now. But they're going to try to ease the pain because you can't have Ohtani doing $2 million for 10 years and then just completely backload the contract. That's ridiculous. Have you guys ever heard of Bobby Bonilla?
Yes.
I have not.
That's literally the same situation, except the Dodgers are paying Ohtani instead. I think it's like $1.4 million until 2036. Yeah, he hasn't played in the Mets in years, decades.
His last year was in like the mid 2000s, right?
2007, 8, I think. But he got all of his money deferred, and that's exactly what's going to happen with Ohtani. And I think you're going to have, unless something's done with baseball, that you're going to have teams keep doing that because Ohtani and the Dodgers are going to compete for all those 10 years. That's how the Dodgers operate. They just got Roki Sasaki, another $300 million deal. It's ridiculous. But any team can go out and spend all this money if they want to. But you got cheap owners who don't want to spend on their team because they're scumbags. So that's all you can say.
They are scumbags.
Yeah.
Massive scumbags.
Your team,
I
Cleveland.
can agree.
Cleveland let a guy with 109 RBIs go. They
Shout
traded
out.
away their Gold Glove winning second baseman. You want to know what they did?
Shout out.
They did nothing in the offseason.
Shout out.
John Means is your prize possession. You want to know how many games he's pitched in like 3 years?
3.
10.
That was close.
You were close, but yeah,
Close.
10 in 3 years. So
It's all right.
Rob
Let's-
Manfred needs to fix things.
Before we
fast.
get into our NFL free agency discussion, we're going to take a quick break. And we'll be back here at the Ball and Beats podcast. We're going to collect ourselves, get these notes together.
It'll be a fun segment.
It'll be a fun segment. Gotta get a little B&B water in here.
I might have to go get me some.
You're going to have to get you some B&B
Yes,
water.
I am.
We'll be back here with our NFL free agency discussion. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Ball and Beats podcast. Hey, you. Yeah, you.
Me?
Absolutely you.
Hit that subscribe button.
Hit that push notifications bell.
How are you guys not subscribed yet?
It's free.
I mean, what are we doing here? Like,
We don't force you to pay to watch this elite content we bring to you on a weekly basis. So subscribe. You should also follow the social media down below and watch on Spotify too. You might as well follow on both. We have 2 different platforms for you to follow us on, so you might as well do so. Double the beats, double the ball, double the trouble.
if you don't do it, your favorite football team is going to go 0-17 next year.
Just like my team will. Back to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ball and Beats podcast. I'm glad you now have finally subscribed to the channel and followed the social media pages. As you know, now it's time to dive into the beginning part of our NFL free agency breakdowns here. You know,
Football
NFL
never
free
stops.
It never stops. It's
Gotta
never
love the pigskin.
We don't believe in the word off season around here when it comes to football. Never. It never is. There's always action going. But, you know, free agency's coming up here in a couple weeks. And, you know, we have to give our predictions here. We're going to start on the offensive side of the ball today. And I will start off here with the quarterback position because, obviously, you need a QB.
A lot of question marks.
There's a good amount of teams that need a quarterback. Do they address it in the draft or do they address it in free agency? Who knows? You know, I will say this, though. This quarterback class ain't really that strong. It is not a strong quarterback class at the free agent market. But when you look at it, there's a couple guys I think that could get cut or traded.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at Kirk Cousins from Atlanta. Screams a trade candidate to me. Could be cut. I would be shocked if he's cut because, you know, Atlanta, if they don't cut him before June 1st, would lose money. And if they cut him post June 1st, they get $0 in cap space to their team. Yeah. So I expect Kirk Cousins to get traded, personally. I do not see him as the Atlanta Falcons quarterback next season. No. I think Michael Penix Jr. is easily going to be their day one starter.
Yeah.
And some teams, I think, for Kirk Cousins that make a lot of sense. Cleveland, right off the bat. I think Cleveland makes a lot of sense because of the Kevin Stefanski system. It makes a lot of sense. The Tennessee Titans, you know, they need a quarterback as well. Maybe he could be a good one for Will Levis to maybe develop under more if they believe Will Levis in the future in him. Yep. Who knows? You know, there's the thing about those guys at 1 and 2. Do they really think Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders are really worth the number 1 and number 2 overall pick?
Yeah.
You know, there's a little bit of debate there. Another team I can see Kirk Cousins going to is maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers. If they don't get Russell Wilson or Justin Fields back,
Steelers need a QB.
The Steelers could get a quarterback because both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are free agents this year. So Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense to me. And both the New York teams and the Jets and the Giants, because the Jets are moving on from Aaron Rodgers, and the Giants have absolutely nobody. So one of those teams, regardless, gets a quarterback in free agency and maybe the draft. I think the Jets would be more likely because I feel like those quarterbacks in the draft maybe take them before they get down to the 7th overall pick. It just depends on how the draft board falls. Another cut candidate I fully expect, I think Derek Carr is getting cut from the Saints. Yep. The Saints are in the biggest cap hell in the NFL, $47 million below the cap. $47 million below the cap. If they designate him as a post-June 1st cut, they would save $30 million in cap right away.
Sheesh.
So
That's nice.
Derek Carr, the thing is when these guys are designated post-June 1st cuts, they can still go out in March and sign in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be really important. For me, teams I think for Derek Carr, if he's cut, New York Giants screams Derek Carr to me right away. Minnesota could if, you know, Sam Darnold leaves and they need someone with J.J. McCarthy. Maybe for like a cheaper deal if he's willing to do it. But I like that fit with Kevin O'Connell. I think Derek Carr would work really well in that kind of system.
QB whisperer.
Yep.
And again, I have Pittsburgh here. I have Pittsburgh for a fit for Derek Carr. I know Pittsburgh fans will probably are like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. But again, this is the hypothetical of if Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is not there. So I feel like Derek Carr in Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense. The one I like the most there is the New York Giants for Derek Carr, though.
Yeah, I can see it.
My last cut candidate that I do have is Gardner Minshew. It's easy. Post-June 1st cut, they'll save almost $10 million in cap space for the Raiders. I don't expect him to be a starter next year, but there's a lot of teams that could use him on depth.
Good backup.
Great backup. Tennessee, Giants. I could see Mac Jones not being the backup in Jacksonville. He could go back to Jacksonville and be there to be the backup for Trevor Lawrence. The Saints, if they fix their cap situation and they could take him in if they cut Derek Carr for a quarterback there.
Yeah.
And maybe I think the one he would benefit from the most is being Brock Purdy's backup in San Francisco behind Brock Purdy. I was thinking of Kyle Shanahan and being in that system. But one guy I think you should watch out for to get cut 100% without question because of this cap situation. This team already has a decent amount of cap, not a lot. But if they cut him, they would save a lot of money. And there's a lot of question marks. He's an older quarterback. He didn't really hit his prime until later on in his career, and that's Geno Smith with Seattle. If they cut Geno Smith this year, they would save $31 million in cap space, and they could go out and get someone.
And they're one piece away on that offense from being elite.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it could be the quarterback position.
Yep.
Geno Smith has been a solid quarterback.
Not bad.
He's been a good quarterback. He's been average. He's never been anything more than that. And some teams I would expect, easily the first one that screams is the Raiders, of course, because of the connection with Pete Carroll and that coaching staff. New Orleans, if Derek Carr's cut, I think that makes a lot of sense. Maybe a backup position for him somewhere like the Chicago Bears behind Caleb Williams, a nice mentor for Caleb Williams in that Ben Johnson offense. And maybe Geno Smith could benefit with a year or two being with Ben Johnson and being a mentor.
Or maybe the Patriots.
Patriots
with
as well.
Drake May
That'd
and
be a
them.
nice one.
Yeah.
I also have Cleveland just because if they're really desperate. And why not return to New York with the Jets, where it all started, But that's my cut candidates. One who's going to get traded, besides Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford. He could get traded. And there's a lot of rumors going out about
Giants and Vikings.
the Vikings in particular. That's one to watch.
I don't want to play Stafford twice a year.
But Stafford could
Can't
be
get rid of this
traded.
dude.
He could be traded because the contract situation is just not ideal at all for the Rams moving forward. They need to adjust that contract.
Yeah.
If they don't adjust the contract, he's getting traded. That's going to happen.
Yep.
I think they have a good enough relationship where they could probably work something out, and I expect him to be the Rams quarterback next season. But I wouldn't be fully shocked. Keep an eye on that. So we've listed off our free agents here in order from our top 5. So I'm going down to 5 for the quarterbacks. Like I said, there isn't a lot. Some guys that aren't on this list, I don't have Zach Wilson on this list. I don't have Marcus Mariota. I don't have – who else is a free agent? I think Joe Flacco's a free agent this year. I do not have none of them. So my number 5, I'm going with Jameis Winston in Cleveland because he showed still that he's Jameis Winston where he can be pretty decent while being maybe the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. I expect him. He could get a starting job. He's not getting anything more than a 1-year deal wherever he goes. He's only going to make probably like $4 to $6 million to be a backup. I feel like Cleveland would love to have Jameis Winston back though in this quarterback room. I don't think it's going to happen though. I don't think it's going to happen because they do kind of want to revamp their quarterback room, but I feel like they would still like to have Jameis Winston back. I don't expect anyone else in Cleveland to be back in that quarterback room. Jameis could be the one.
Yeah.
My favorite fit is the Indianapolis Colts with Anthony Richardson.
That's what I was going to say.
I feel like Anthony Richardson would take a lot of pride in having Jameis Winston coming in, and I feel like he could benefit a lot from Jameis. Washington Commanders behind Jaden Daniels, who just had Marcus Mariota this season as his backup.
Yep.
And maybe if Atlanta does move off of Kirk Cousins, which I think is fully going to happen, behind Penix Jr. as a backup. So I don't really have like a dark horse team for Jameis because there is none. Anyone could take Jameis Winston. My expectation, I think he's going to be an Indianapolis Colt next year.
Yeah.
A 1-year deal to be there with Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen. I think Jameis Winston would be one of your best. He is the top 3 backup in the NFL currently, for sure, 100%.
Fair to say.
At number 4, it's kind of hard to have him lower on this list than I do because I have others ahead of him. But he did not look great in his time in the Big Apple and Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. Yikes. They've said that they're going to move off of Aaron Rodgers. And, any team right now who's going to try and get him, you don't really need to worry about the money situation because the New York Jets have to pay it all. So, regardless, you can get Aaron Rodgers for free. Yeah, he's 40. Yeah, he don't look like Aaron Rodgers, but, there's some teams out there that I think would still go for him.
It's Aaron Rodgers.
It's Aaron Rodgers. There's 3 that stand out. One, I think, is more of a dark horse than people say. Some people think that this one dark horse team I have is like at the top of the list, but I don't see it. So my teams, I have Minnesota up there. I think Minnesota, if
finish the cycle,
finish the
Favre cycle.
They have
happening.
to. It's got to happen because here's the thing. It just does. The Green Bay quarterbacks, they always got to be a Viking. 1, but 2, say Sam Darnold is gone and you don't have anybody with J.J. McCarthy. Might as well get Aaron Rodgers for free, Another team, Tennessee Titans 1 year with Will Levis. Think about that quarterback room. Will Levis and his Mayo and Aaron Rodgers and his ayahuasca, they should clash those two together.
It's going to be interesting to see what the Titans do.
I have no idea what the Titans do.
They need to take a quarterback, dude. Levis is not good. That's just my opinion. I think they need to get one of Cam Ward or Shador. But I don't know. I could see they just need to get a quarterback.
Yeah.
Will Levis is not the guy.
No.
My last team on this list is maybe he won't leave the Big Apple with the New York Giants. I don't see that happening.
That'd be funny.
But I feel like the Giants, why wouldn't they be interested in him? Hell, they're interested in everybody else. They might as well keep Aaron Rodgers around in New York City. A dark horse team, a lot of people have been saying this recently, and I'm not buying it a lot. I think it's Pittsburgh Steelers. For some reason, people are talking about the Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers connection that there could be. Do they want to have another bridge quarterback, though? Granted, this quarterback room is not great. This quarterback room and this quarterback draft is not great outside of the top 2.
It's a massive, massive, massive drop-off after that.
Yes.
Who's the next quarterback?
Jackson Dart,
Will Howard,
Kyle McCord.
Oh, boy.
Quinn Ewers. People forgot Quinn Ewers is still in this draft class,
I keep
too.
forgetting that. I just have a feeling he's going to come back. I don't know. I feel like he put his name in there.
I don't think he can come back anymore.
I think he needed one more year, but that's just me.
Here's what I expect. There's 2 things that's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. 1, he just retires. He's done. I think that's what should happen, and I think that's what will happen. But my other option is if he doesn't retire, I think he signs a 1-year deal with Tennessee to be with Will Levis if they, don't end up drafting a quarterback and being there to help develop Will Levis. Granted, Aaron Rodgers, he's just like Brett Favre. I'm not here to develop you, They both have that same mentality. But Tennessee needs something, and Tennessee, they love their washed players. Mm-hmm. So Aaron Rodgers fits the bill 100%. Moving on to my third quarterback, my number 3 quarterback in free agency is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson with Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson's still that guy. He proved it a little bit this season. He bounced back. Was he great? No. Was he solid? Yes. His contract this year is probably going to be still roughly the same. I don't see it changing that much. He's probably going to be in that range of like the $40 to $45 million a year. Is there any team out there that's going to want to pay that this year? No. I expect Pittsburgh to want him back. I expect the Giants to be interested. And I definitely can see the Raiders now with Pete Carroll trying to swing the fences and him going back to the AFC West. And another dark horse, I would throw Indianapolis again in there, depending on how everything falls.
They need like a guy to like mentor
slash
like if needed help out with Anthony Richardson.
Yes.
Because Richardson, I can't get like a grip on him. It's an odd situation in Indianapolis because Richardson has flashes to where he looks really good, and then he looks awful. Like he can't he can't complete the ball. He can't throw accurately, but then he'll have like a 65-yard like perfect throw to Michael Pittman.
He has no in between.
I feel so bad for Michael Pittman, by
There's
the way.
Michael Pittman,
One of the most underrated receivers in the league.
one of the most underrated players
Yes.
in the entire league, for sure. But, with Russell Wilson, I think it just makes too much sense to return to Pittsburgh. A 1 to 2 year deal, end your career in Pittsburgh, and that way it gives Pittsburgh some room to maybe get a quarterback in a year or two in the draft. There's going to be better quarterbacks coming up in the next couple drafts. So give Pittsburgh that leeway.
You think Wilson's the starter in Pittsburgh
I think
next
Wilson
year?
is the starter in Pittsburgh next year.
Maybe draft a quarterback in the 3rd round. Get you
Possibly
a Kyle
that. They could
McCord,
get
Will
a Kyle
Howard,
McCord or
Quinn
something
Ewers,
like that.
something like that. Yeah.
Or they get their guy later on in 26.
True.
As well. At number 2, I think he's a little higher on my list than others, but I have a lot of faith in this guy. And it's Justin Fields from Pittsburgh as well.
I love Justin Fields.
I think he deserves a lot more respect than what he's gotten. Like, look at how he played early in the season for Pittsburgh. Yeah, it wasn't
Good.
like elite,
He won them games.
but it was good. It was
He
good.
won them games. Simple.
It was really good. And, he's not going to be demanding a lot of money. He's probably in the ballpark of like 7 to, at the high end, maybe $15 million. I don't think it's that high.
1 year deal.
1 to 2 year deal. 1 to 2 years. Maybe a team will be willing to give him an extra year if they really need it.
Yeah.
I don't see Fields back in Pittsburgh, though, sadly. I would have thought Justin Fields would have been their guy moving forward
They didn't
when he
give him a
got there.
shot. They didn't give him a chance.
They didn't give him a fair chance. I mean, Mike Tomlin, it's weird because he made the move and Pittsburgh was doing pretty good. And then Russell Wilson, for the first half of that move, he looked so much better. And then he fell off a cliff. But I think they trust Russell Wilson more than they trust Justin Fields because of his accuracy concerns.
I still think there's something there in Fields.
I agree.
Fields at one point in Chicago was an MVP candidate.
Yep.
Like he was playing phenomenal. And I think that there's going to be a team. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to
I agree.
resign him.
I do think, regardless, say Russell Wilson hypothetically isn't back in Pittsburgh, I think that they would have to be interested in bringing him back. But other teams, I mean, of course, the same teams, some of the same teams you're going to hear. Tennessee needs something. Raiders need something. I have Indianapolis because of the Justin Fields similarity with Anthony Richardson. And the New York Jets. And to me, I think he's going to be a New York Jet next season. I think he's going to sign a 1 to 2 year deal in New York. New York has gone out there and said they're intrigued in a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
It's been out there. And,
Fields to Wilson.
Fields to Wilson.
Fields to Garrett Wilson. I love it. Never mind. I love it.
I think-
the Jets, that's where quarterbacks go to die.
That is, but I
That'd
think
be cool.
that,
That'd be sweet.
That would be very sweet to see Fields and Garrett Wilson again. But here's another one, the dark horse team. And it was earlier with my guy who could be cut, my dark horse cut, Seattle, Geno Smith.
Yeah.
If he's gone, bring in Justin Fields on a 1 to 2 year prove it deal and see what he's got. If you want to go younger.
Another mobile QB.
Exactly. And go younger. I'm not saying he's the future of Seattle if he were to go there, but it just could be. He could find his groove in the West Coast there. Number 1, it's weird saying this in this year. Last year you would have thought he wouldn't have even been on this list. But number 1 is Sam Darnold with Minnesota. With the year he had.
What a year he had. Great, terrible game against the Lions and the Rams.
Yes.
Both times. But other than that, he was phenomenal.
Yes. Here's the thing, though. His contract situation to me scares me with what's going to happen. Granted, maybe he would benefit by going back to Minnesota. I think he would benefit greatly to stay in Minnesota.
Him and McCarthy.
Him and McCarthy.
Yeah.
And, the thing is, how much are they really going to pay him? Is he going to get paid more? Like, if we look at the contracts, if you break it down, I feel like he's not going to get Daniel Jones money. He could get Daniel Jones money. I think he's going to be closer to Baker Mayfield's contract at around
35.
33. He's at 33 and a half. I think he gets more than Baker, though.
35.
I have him in that 35 to 40
Yeah.
million range. But here's the thing. Minnesota and their cap space, do they want to pay? Do they think Sam Darnold is worth that much money? That's the real question here.
I'd love to have him back.
That's the
in
real
Minnesota.
question. Teams I look at who would be interested, there's some teams on here, they would only be interested if he was to be traded because of their money situation. So you have the Giants.
Yep.
I think the Giants, they would have to trade for him.
Yep.
I don't think financially it'd be able to work. Tennessee, they'd be interested in him. Vegas, they got a lot of cap space.
Ton.
And, of course, because of the system, the Cleveland Browns, they would have to trade for him. But the only way you trade for him is in a franchise tag. So there's two outcomes here that happens with Sam Darnold. One, he signs a 3-year deal worth roughly like $115 million or so. And he's going to be the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback if that happens. Because Las Vegas has the money to spend. And at the draft currently, depending on how the quarterback room falls, do they really want to trade up for a guy who could be a project? Or you saw 1 year out of Sam Darnold and you're like, wow, that's the guy right there.
Pete Carroll back with a USC guy.
Would love to have him in the AFC West.
I know you would.
No, I want him to
love
stay in Minnesota. He can be the Vikings quarterback next year.
But here's the other situation.
Such a great player.
Minnesota, if they franchise tag him, I don't think he's Minnesota's quarterback either. Because if they tag
It's
him,
McCarthy's time next year.
if he's tagged by Minnesota, the tag is $39 million
No. No way.
for a quarterback.
No way. That's way too
Minnesota is
35,
not going to pay.
35 would be the max I would.
Minnesota's not going to pay
It
Sam
did-
Darnold $39
I don't know if
million.
anybody saw Darnold when the games actually mattered. He was atrocious against the Lions for the 1 seed in the NFC North, and he may have had a worse game in the wild card round. He was terrible,
Yeah.
but he had a fantastic overall year. He just had a very crappy ending.
Thing is, I think regardless, I think Minnesota would like to keep Sam Darnold back. I think they would want it. Are they willing to pony up the money? I don't think they are. And I think
either.
Vegas is desperate. Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, not the answers. Minshew's going to get cut, in my opinion, already. So they got to do something. And do they trust that a quarterback's going to fall to 6 between Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders? Who knows? We'll have to see. Well, we'll have to get closer to that time frame. And trust me, here on the Ball and Beats podcast, we'll cook up something for our own mock draft, you know. But
Yeah.
I think the Raiders, I think they overpay compared to some other teams, and they're willing to pony up the money for Sam Darnold. And he's going to be a Las Vegas Raider.
When
he's
does
gonna
the
be with
free
Pete
agency
Carroll.
period start?
Free agency period
March 1st?
starts March 11th, I believe, is free agency start time.
We are going to-
We're
yeah.
in the time right now where guys can get franchise tagged right now too. So I mean, there isn't a lot of candidates out there if you really look at the franchise tag this year, but there's some guys we may discuss even more between these two guys. But
I think we're going to learn a ton about quarterbacks in the free agency, and then the draft. The
Yes.
draft, the free agency is going to determine the draft.
I agree.
If
For
Tennessee does not go out and sign a quarterback, they're drafting Shador or Cam Ward.
Yeah.
I fully believe that. Same
Yes.
with the Browns, the Giants, any of the teams in the top 5. Sam Darnold at the Raiders, I think, would be pretty good. Do I think the Raiders, if I was the GM of the Raiders, would I do that? No, I'd trade up and I'd draft Cam or Shador and just, I'm desperate at this point if I'm the Raiders, so just try a rookie quarterback with Pete Carroll. Maybe it works. But we got to see if Darnold's going to be the same guy as last year, in my opinion. Like, this may have been a Linsanity run, and the real quarterback was the last 2 games he had in Minnesota. But I agree. I think that those I like those QB rankings. I think those are pretty good.
Just saying, man. I know my quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? I said Jaden Daniels was going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm going to take that one to the high road with me.
Yep.
We don't
just
need to.
like just like the Titans are going to make the playoffs, right?
There's a reason why they're picking first. I should have bought into the
Will
fact
Levis
that,
is the guy.
See, here's the thing. It wasn't necessarily about Will Levis. It was all their free agent pieces, but I forgot they got washed.
Talk
players.
about selling your soul for money. L'Jarius
Calvin Ridley.
Sneed. L'Jarius
People
Sneed sold his soul.
People
for that
forget
contract.
L'Jarius Sneed was a tag and trade guy.
Yeah.
He was a fantastic player with the Chiefs. He sold his soul for that contract, but
It's all right.
he
Shout
got his
out Calvin Ridley. Shout out D-Hop when he was there. Shout out Julio when he was there. Oh, you get the picture? Yeah. Guys that shouldn't be in a Tennessee Titans jersey. We're going to move on here to the running backs, and I think Mr. Cameron Fonstock's in charge of those. So, sir.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with the potential cuts. A lot of this running back free agency is kind of mid. I mean, there's some names that are good, but all in all, it's kind of iffy. But Saquon and Derek changed this market this year,
Yes.
showing that running backs can just take over an offense. So the first cut is DJ Dallas from the Cardinals. They might move with James Conner as well, but he had a good season, so I think they might stick with him. He's $2.4 million, so it's just an easy little cut. The other one's Miles Sanders from the Panthers. What a fall off.
yes.
Massive fall off, and that's going to happen. I agree 100%.
I
'Cause
never
Chuba
saw
Hubbard's
his
good.
career going like this. He
No.
played pretty good with the Eagles.
It's like David Johnson with the Cardinals a few years back.
yes,
Well, yeah, because
exactly.
he was there with the Eagles when they went to the Super Bowl a
first
few years
time,
ago.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the surprise cuts. Now, this is kind of the dark horse cuts. This one's not a running back, but we're going to count him. Kyle Juszczyk. From the 49ers, he is $6.5 million
For a fullback is
for
crazy.
a fullback. So I could see them cutting him, trying to make some moves. You know, Debo, he's getting out of there. Maybe try something. But also, as you said earlier with the Saints, Alvin Kamara. It's like a 7.5 cap hit. They could cut him, which I don't know where he would go. Where would you guys like to see Kamara?
He had,
Alvin
he had a damn good year last year.
Yeah.
He did,
Kamara
but
actually had a really good year.
the issue with New Orleans, you know, and we've kind of had talks off air,
Yeah.
but New Orleans in their situation is awful. It's the
Yes.
worst. It's easily the worst in
If
the
I was
NFL.
Kellen Moore, I would have stayed in Philly.
Yeah.
Thing is-
I wouldn't have taken that
For
Saints
sure.
The
job.
thing is with them, they're 50 mil in the cap hole pretty much. I think it's like 48. It's roughly $48 million, give or take. All their best players are in their 30s or just about to be 30.
Yep.
They're all older stars. Cam Jordan might retire. Ryan Ramczyk might retire. Alvin Kamara, he's getting to that point. He might be on his last contract.
Yeah.
You know,
Did Chris Olave dirty, man.
did Chris like their one star that they did have on
This
the
dude who's
offensive
young
side
is-
feature? He's had 5 concussions
Yeah.
in his football career now, you know, so who knows how much longer that's really going to last. And, you know, Kamara's going to have to be a cap casualty at some point. If it's not this year, he might be a free agent coming up. I would need to look exactly. So he's not going to be back whenever that contract's up because they are in a hole and it's only getting worse
Yep.
next year. So it's not like this is getting better. They have to find a way. They keep pushing things down the road and down the road. They need to just start
Down the road
eating
has
it.
come. Down the road has come, and
Yes.
it's going to keep coming for the next few
Yeah.
years.
So that's the issue with New Orleans. It is not pretty at all.
Kellen Moore's got a big task on his hands.
It's so bad because he's going to be there for 2 years and fired because they're going to go like
They're
3
going
and
to go 5
14.
and 12. They're going to go 5 and 12 or 4 and 13.
And that's
Because
exactly
they're not
why.
bad enough to be the worst. Like they have some talent.
Yeah.
Derek Carr when he's playing is all right.
See,
Kamara,
that's why I had him as a cap
Olave.
casualty.
And
That's
their defense,
$30 million they're
their
saving.
defense isn't terrible. Cam Jordan deserves better, by the way.
Yes.
But they're gonna go 5 and 12, 6 and 11.
Right.
They're not terrible, but
Well, that's
they're
why you
not
cut
even
Derek. That's why
nearly
you
good.
cut Derek Carr to get $30 million out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to make a lot of cuts.
A lot. A lot.
They
of
need to
cuts.
just bottom out next year. Just tank.
Yes. They're going to have
Give
to.
Kellen Moore some years to get it
and
going.
get Arch Manning to be in New Orleans first overall
that'd be
pick.
Nice. 16 Manning jersey
Just
with
like-
the
just like-
with that New Orleans
just like
gold and black.
Gives
That'd,
me
family
Drew
members.
Brees vibes all over
that'd be
again.
sweet. That'd be sweet.
Did we just break news to y'all a year in
Arch
advance?
Manning is
Maybe
gonna be a
so.
Saint.
But Cam, back to your running backs here.
So we're going to go with the 5. So at 5, it's Cowboys running back. 2 of them could get cut. Zeke, you know, just
Just
He
get
already
him.
was cut,
he
wasn't
has
he?
been cut.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain Zeke was already
Yeah, he
cut,
was-
right?
Okay, good.
You know it's
'cause-
bad
deserves
because
it.
you know
Yeah.
He's not good anymore.
But Rico Dowdle, I hope I'm saying that last name
Yep.
correctly, who got a lot of touches this season because Deuce Vaughn isn't touching the ball at 5'5" or whatever he is, and Zeke wasn't it. Tony Pollard's away. Rico had a big season, so he could be with the Broncos or the Patriots next season, as the Broncos are getting rid of, I think,
Him and Bo
Javonte
Nix.
Williams.
I could see Dowdle in Denver.
yeah.
And also the Patriots. They just got money. Young player, can build, has some potential. So we'll see where he
Yeah, but
goes.
ton.
Patriots have
They
130
have
million.
Yeah, they could offer anybody at this point. So
Denver, I like. Another one I think he could fit really well in. Maybe he could replace Miles Sanders in Carolina with
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard. You know, a different style back there. So
With the Carolina Reaper, Bryce Young.
Bryce is looking nice.
Price is nice.
But at 4, a guy that hits dearly to all of us here at the panel, J.K. Dobbins.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was a Charger. Has had a rough NFL career with just injuries all over the
Yep.
place. Both ACLs, I believe.
Unreal.
And coming
And
back,
Achilles.
1,000-yard season, comeback player of the year candidate. Absolute dog. But free agent. I see him coming back, to be honest with you. I mean, fit Harbaugh system, downhill, amazing. Him and Gus, what a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't stay, the Patriots again. I could see them just throwing money at some guys just because.
Why not?
Why not?
They have the money to do it.
You know, this may come across as bias, but Nick Chubb, if he's not back in Cleveland, he kind of fits.
Same play style.
Similar play
Dobbins
style
is
with
sort-
Dobbins.
yeah,
So like a
Dobbins is
1 or
same
2
Chubb.
year deal to have that kind of filler with Jerome Ford. I think Cleveland could be a team to look out for. Another team for him, I don't know. Maybe what happens with the Arizona backs. You know?
Exactly. Yep.
Maybe he goes to Arizona and gets in with Kyler Murray and company.
As long as he doesn't go to the Raiders, I'm all right.
Raiders could get anybody a running back too.
yeah.
They need it. Zamir White, decent,
Yeah.
not the answer.
Yeah.
This next one's going to hurt your heart. At number 3, we have Nick Chubb from the Browns.
To Pittsburgh.
Now, if he's healthy, he is one of the best in the league, and he's had some troubles.
Will he ever get there?
So that's why he's at 3.
That's the concern.
That's why he's at 3. Teams expected, Pittsburgh is one of them. I mean, it would be an absolute horrible move, and Cleveland fans would burn the whole city down, especially if Myles Garrett is gone.
If Myles Garrett is traded and Nick Chubb is a Steeler. No, if Myles Garrett's traded and Nick Chubb's a Steeler, this set
Both
burned
to
to the
Pittsburgh.
ground. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
Both
not
to
doing that.
Pittsburgh.
But seriously, if he goes to Pittsburgh, I may punch you in the face offset.
I'm sorry. But a weird team is the Titans. The Titans could just go out and get him if they wanted to. They don't. Tony Pollard's okay. He's not all
And
right.
I do have Tajay Spears.
But why not Nick Chubb?
Pollard, another guy that sold his soul to the Titans.
I kind of forgot he was their running back for a hot second. See, that's the point. All these quarterbacks. I love your notification bell, by the way.
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
like
yeah.
that notification bell, you guys should subscribe to the channel. Finish off your running backs here.
Number 2, Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Played at the Steelers.
Had a nice year last year.
Very-
Much better than his year
Yeah.
prior.
Yes.
He's looking a lot more athletic. More helmet down now. Like, just carry the ball kind of like a baby. He takes care of it a lot more than what he did. But I got a whole division for this, except one team, the AFC West. The Chiefs, I don't see them taking any part in this money and stuff like that. But
Maybe though.
Raid-
If you take a
Pacheco
pay
has
cut.
been iffy. I don't
Yeah.
know. But I get what you're going.
yeah, so Raiders, I mean, he fits everywhere, but I think he fits with the Chargers the best. I mean, he's almost Gus Edwards, but 2 times better.
Him and Harbaugh's system.
Exactly.
He'd be-
That's what I'm
that'd
saying.
be nice.
He just fits the system. And then at number 1, we have Aaron Jones. Great season. He came out the waters as in Green Bay the season before, dog in the playoffs. That guy did a lot for me in fantasy, by the way, that year. Also, and then now last year with the Vikings, he balled out again. He was their complimentary back. When Sam wasn't having a good game, they gave it to Aaron, which probably means they're going to keep him. I think they're going to try to keep what they had last year and run it back, get more chemistry. But if he does not go there, he's going to the Raiders. He screams a Raiders-esque running back.
I could see Raiders. I could see Denver as well for Aaron Jones. I want to bounce back off of Najee Harris, though.
Yeah.
He just gives me like mini Derrick Henry vibe, and why not New England with Mike Vrabel?
Yeah.
You know, I feel like
Ooh.
Harrison
New
May,
England.
that'd be
Yeah,
pretty nice.
and if they get a receiver as well, you
Plus,
know,
he's like 25, 26. He's still young.
T. Higgins?
maybe we'll have to see. That's
Maybe
a possibility.
we'll have to see.
You know, but you know, I like that. Aaron Jones. I personally expect him to be back
Yeah.
in Minnesota, and plus they've also done something recently with his contract that kind of insinuates they're working on a deal with him. So I expect Aaron Jones to be a Minnesota
just makes
Viking next
sense.
season. So let's end this off with Spencer. He's going with the wide receivers, and the wide receivers, it's kind of iffy, but it's kind of elite. It's a weird class.
The free agency is solid, but the candidates for cut and trade, there's some good ones. So I'm going to start out from the bottom. A guy that I think is going to get traded, DK Metcalf.
Yeah. 100%.
I think he's going to get traded. He screams, and he screams to me a Chief. I could see him and Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, Seattle trading him.
I told Logan that earlier.
Because his contract, he's making, I think, 25 or 26. I think Seattle, their receiving core, it's time for Smith and Jigba to be the guy. It's time for him, and then, he's
The rest to eventually
the
step
rest
up
to
or
eventually
draft
step up.
more.
Yeah. Another guy, and this may come as a surprise, Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
That's a cut candidate right there.
expected to be released due to his contract, a $24 million cap hit in 2025.
For Christian Kirk?
Jacksonville paid him
He
that
paid
much
him
money.
really good money.
He was the one in that free agency
And
class. I think it was 2
he was
years
a
ago.
solid receiver. He wasn't crazy.
He wasn't $24 million a
No, he
year
wasn't.
receiver.
Um,
Jacksonville paid him that.
I could see him signing with a ton of any team. Honestly, he's a very solid receiver, but he's not $24 million worth.
DK Metcalf, I want to go back to him, though, because another team I feel like I could see, you won't like this, but Aaron would. Green Bay Packers. If they finally go out there and say, let's get a quarterback, a really good receiver. Granted, Christian Watson is kind of like a DK Metcalf build.
Yeah.
And they're very young. Green Bay's very young.
Yep.
But they need a star.
They need a veteran.
They need a veteran, but they need a star. DK Metcalf is a star, if he can catch the ball all the time.
Yeah.
And Green Bay would make a lot of sense, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Chargers.
Yes.
Please,
Yes.
DK.
I think anybody makes sense for the Chargers at the wide receiver position outside of the slot.
Yeah.
My next guy, who I don't think he'll get cut because I just don't think this team will do that. I think he'll get traded. Debo.
Yes.
But that's
Yeah.
pretty much straightforward. Green Bay, Kansas City, Buffalo,
Washington.
Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Washington. There's a ton of teams that make sense for Debo. One that's been known for a while, but we haven't gotten anything so far is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, he's getting older, and he's going to be released because his contract is insane. $29 million cap hit next year, $27 million in 2026. He's got 2 more years left on his deal. I don't think anybody's going to be trading for that contract. But obviously, the teams, it's kind of the same ones. Green Bay, Kansas City, Buffalo, Jacksonville, the Chargers, the Bengals, the Lions would make some sense with the Goff thing. It makes a lot of sense to me. This next guy, he's going to get traded, and it's only one destination. Devontae Adams is going wherever Aaron Rodgers goes. If Aaron Rodgers retires, I have no idea. One of the other teams. Chiefs.
I think Devontae Smith is more likely a cap casualty as well, because if you think about how much money between
Devontae
Aaron
Smith.
Rodgers, Devontae Adams. I meant Devontae
Yeah.
Adams. Did I say Devontae Smith?
Yes.
Yeah.
My bad. My apologies on that. If they cut both Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, they could save like $50 million in cap space combined.
Yeah.
So the Jets could really, really make some noise in free agency if they wanted to, if they just cut both of them.
Yeah.
Traded? Yeah, that's fair. If Aaron Rodgers,
Wherever Aaron Rodgers goes, I feel like you can get a cheap 6th, 5th round
Almost
pick
screams Tennessee. Like, kind of in his down years, both of them.
Ooh,
There's so many teams that need receivers,
Yeah.
and one of my free agents guys, I say every single team, and it's T. Higgins. Every single team wants T. Higgins.
Yeah, no doubt.
The last guy I think is the biggest star, and I think he's going to get traded. I don't think he's happy where he's at.
I know what you're going to
He
say.
hasn't been winning
I
recently.
know what he's going to say.
And he just can't seem to get over the hump of the first round in the playoffs.
It's Cheetah.
It is Cheetah. Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, I think, is going to get traded out of Miami. The Dolphins are going to they're going to have to look inward and figure some things out. Tyreek Hill to me, and I'm going to hate saying this, he would make so much sense in Green Bay.
Oh.
Him and Jordan Love and I would just no, please don't happen. There's 2 teams to me actually 3 that make the most sense. Green Bay is one of them. I think that makes the most sense. This next one will not happen. The Bills. The Dolphins will not trade him to their division rival.
No.
And how about the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I love the
How
Jacksonville
about
Jaguars.
Trevor Lawrence? He doesn't have to go far. Stays in Florida. Stays warm.
Last week, that was my bold take on our episode. I said Tyreek Hill would be a Jacksonville Jaguar next season in a trade. So I fully agree
makes
with
sense.
that one. I think it makes sense. Christian Kirk's going to be gone. They'd have Brian Thomas Jr., him opposite of Brian Thomas Jr.
Yep.
as your speedster. And maybe
And I think I think because Jacksonville has talent. They have talent. People forget they have
Their
a solid
defense
offense.
is nice.
Their defensive line
Is elite.
really nice.
It's elite.
They just need some
Sneak
coaching.
elite.
And we'll see if Duval can break through.
Duval.
All right.
UMass.
My 5th guy on my free agent list is DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay.
DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is going to get $12 to $15 million per year. Teams interested: Kansas City, Green Bay, the Rams, and the Commanders. You can
Okay.
get him for a cheap deal. I still think he has the potential to get close to 1,000 yards in a year. He's not what he used to be, but he still can be solid. My prediction, I think he signs a 1-year, $14 million deal to return to Kansas City.
It's fair.
I think he returns to the Chiefs. It makes a lot of sense to me to just have him come back with Mahomes. He knows the system. He can get another year under his belt. But a dark horse team that I think could sign DeAndre Hopkins for a cheap deal, the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh.
Because Cowboys need some receiver depth outside of CeeDee Lamb, and I could see CD and DeAndre
I like
Hopkins
that.
with Dak Prescott next year.
That's really nice. The other fit that you mentioned that I really like, I love the Sean McVay fit in the Rams.
And the Rams,
Yeah.
yep.
You know, I think DeMarcus Robinson, he almost had like a career year
Him
with
and
the
Puka?
Rams.
Him and Puka would
Him
be
and
nice.
Puka and that trio right there.
Yes.
Sneaky.
Could be nice.
Like a very underweighted wide receiver core.
My next guy, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
He's fallen off a little bit, but he's still very good. I still think he a lot like D-Hop. I still think he can get to 1,000 yards in a year.
Shout out Cardi B, by the way.
I think he's going to get $12 to $15 million a year. I think it's going to be a cheap deal.
What? All I said was shout out Cardi B.
Okay. Teams
If
interested:
you know, you know. If you know,
Chiefs,
you know.
Packers, Chargers, Rams, Commanders, and Jaguars. My prediction: he signs a 1-year, $15 million deal to go to SoFi and play for the Los Angeles Chargers. I think Stephon Diggs is going to be thrown into the Justin Herbert offense to go opposite of Lad McConkey, and they're going to draft Colston Loveland, and that's going to be a solid receiving core.
Nah, I'd take that.
That's a solid.
I think I could
receiving
take
core.
that. Stephon Diggs is all right. I want more of a physical receiver personally. I'd rather take DK. I mean, we got a Lad McConkey who
A
can
lot
run
of
after
these
the
teams,
catch.
it's the same like 10
Yeah,
teams that are going to need
exactly.
receivers.
Oh, yeah.
Except for one guy.
But I do like Stephon.
You know,
Still a dog.
I realistically, I see Stephon Diggs maybe a Texan again.
Yeah.
It just depends. I feel like best fit is still Houston, but Houston still needs another receiver anyway.
Because of Tank Dell. Tank Dell's going to be out next year.
Houston might use their first round pick on a wide receiver. So
Yep. My dark horse team, the Lions. I think that the Lions, it makes a lot of sense. Stephon Diggs won't have to be that it guy. He'll be behind Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams. He can be that third receiver, that depth guy, unless the Lions re-sign Tim Patrick. It all depends. But I could see a 1-year, $15 million deal. The Lions have a ton of salary cap, a ton of cap space. And I could see him going there. My next guy, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, solid year, not great. He was good in Cleveland.
is he top 5?
And he went to Buffalo, and he wasn't all that great. He didn't get a lot of chemistry going with Josh Allen.
That seems to be an issue with these really good receivers.
Well, the free agent guys,
I know,
because
but
the guys that aren't free agents have chemistry with their quarterback.
Khalil Shakir, he's a dog.
It's true.
I expect him to get kind of like the other two, $12 to $15 million a year. He's not going to get a ton. Teams interested, the same ones I've mentioned: Chiefs, Packers, Bills. Although he's not going to back to Buffalo.
I think I got a dark horse. I
Carolina, the Chargers, and the Jaguars. My prediction: a 2-year, $28 million deal to go play for Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. To go alongside of, I know it's a little bit of an aging receiving core, alongside of Adam Thielen and Xavier Legette, who had a decent rookie year. The Panthers need to give Bryce Young some help, and they need another receiver. And while I think they want to go younger, I think Amari Cooper can really help out this offense for the Panthers because they were good. The last few games of the year, they were looking nice, and I expect the Panthers to be fighting for a wild card spot next year, which is crazy to think about. It's 2 years ago. They were utterly atrocious.
Yeah.
But Dave Canales has done I know he only won 5 games, very solid job his first year, and I think with that first-round pick, they can do a lot of different things. They can go for a lot of different routes.
Very interesting division over there.
The NFC South? Yeah.
Who's the dark horse, though? I'm intrigued because I have a dark horse.
The
that I
dark
think.
horse team that I think it would make a lot of sense, and he'd be put into a culture that wants to win and win now. The Cincinnati Bengals. Him, because I have a really good feeling they're not going to pay T. Higgins, and they're going to pay Jamar Chase. And I think that him alongside Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper's going to get the ball. Joe Burrow's going to throw it to him. And I think that could be a really good duo there. A trio with Jamar Chase.
You know, I have another dark horse, and it's because, one, they only really have one guy right now, and they didn't really even utilize him that well, one. But two, it'd be a good mentor. Why not Arizona? Opposite of Marvin Harrison Jr.
I like that.
Yeah,
They don't have anyone else really in that wide receiver room that much. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Or Jags.
Yeah.
I feel
Jags
like
too.
if they don't get Tyreek, they'll go for like a Amari Cooper or somebody that's kind of older, but
A better
plays all right.
Christian Kirk.
Yeah, literally.
The second guy that's going to be available, very, very good underrated receiver. He got hurt last year. Chris Godwin.
Yep.
Chris Godwin is a very underrated player. He's still solidly young. He's 28. He's not that old. I think he's going to get $20 to $23 million here. I think he's going to get a little more. He's a very good wide receiver. Do I think he's a wide receiver 1? I don't know. Well, we're going to find out. Team's interested. I think Tampa Bay is going to want to get him back.
Yep.
I am banking on they are not going to pay him.
They would tag him.
I think that they're going to either tag him or he's going to go somewhere else. Kansas City, Buffalo, Texans, Chargers, Commanders, Jaguars. My prediction, he's going to sign a 3-year, $67 million deal to return to his old offensive coordinator down in Jacksonville, Florida. He's going to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Liam Cohn, he knows the system Liam Cohn runs. Obviously, if they go and get Tyreek Hill, I don't think this happens. But if they don't get Tyreek, Chris Godwin makes a ton of sense for the Jaguars to go opposite of Brian Thomas Jr. in that Jags offense. He knows the system and because of Tampa Bay, and I think it'd make a ton of sense. They could get him for not an expensive deal. It would be sort of like a Christian Kirk-esque level deal, maybe a little less.
But a better receiver.
But Godwin is a better receiver than Christian Kirk. So, yeah.
Dark horse? I'm intrigued. What's your
Dark horse?
Because I know mine, and I'd love mine.
This would make a ton of sense. Green Bay. I know it's not really much of a dark horse, but Green Bay needs a receiver. They just don't pay for him.
Yep.
That's the thing. If they somehow
don't
pay
pay
for it. Yeah.
for receivers. The Green Bay Packers.
For me, I'm thinking off the top of my head, like, wow. This team doesn't necessarily have a slot receiver. They have very underrated guys, and you put Chris Godwin in this room. Why not give Bo Nix in Denver Chris Godwin? Sean Payton would love Chris Godwin.
Be good, Tom. Yeah.
I think that would be like
be
a
nice.
sneaky fit.
Him and Cortland Sutton.
If somehow the Cowboys could pull it off too,
yeah.
that'd be
Cowboys
crazy.
need to get something. That's why I do believe that they need to
CD
get
and
a
him
receiver.
together would be amazing.
Yeah. It's number one. I can only imagine. We already know who it is, but drum roll,
who
please.
the number one is. T. Higgins.
Yay.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Who wouldn't have guessed that
I
one?
expect him to get $28 to $34 million.
I think you're lowballing it.
Money.
I think he's
It
worth
would-
more than Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk got 32.
We'll see.
I think it's more 32 to 36.
I think he's going to get 28, 34, $35 million a year. He's not getting any more than 35. There's no, he's not. No.
Amon-Ra's worth more,
Yeah, Amon-Ra is.
but he's worth more than Brandon
But
Ayuk.
Amon-Ra does everything. T. Higgins, he's a good receiver. He hasn't gotten above 1,100 yards in 1 year in Cincinnati. I don't think.
I mean, he is.
He is wide receiver too, though. So, teams interested, every single team.
Yeah,
that's
fair.
all I said. Every single team. My prediction, and I actually think this is going to happen. I think this would make a ton of sense for this team, and it would make them arguably one of the top offenses in the league. T. Higgins is going to sign a 3-year, $96 million deal to play with Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders.
Oh, him and
Jaden
Scary
Daniels.
Terry.
Oh,
Scary Terry.
he could still
T.
be wide
Higgins.
receiver too.
Yeah.
He's going to be wide receiver. It
He
depends.
could still be wide
Yeah.
receiver too.
But
With Terry McLaurin.
1A and 1B, they're almost
Yes,
the same player.
they are almost the same player. But that's the thing. Like, you still have Terry,
Yep.
who can be wide
T.
receiver
Higgins, I feel, is going to sign with the Washington Commanders, a dark horse team. This also makes a ton of sense to me. People could say New England. They could just throw a ton of money. I get it. but you're not going to win in New England. I think you could win with this team. Carolina. I think Carolina, if they can get off the mat a little bit, it'd be a younger receiver. Him, Bryce Young, and Adam Thielen. I know I had Amari Cooper signing. But if they don't sign Cooper, I could see them throwing a ton of money at Carolina.
And you get him a wide receiver 1.
Yes.
For the future.
This is all if the Bengals do not franchise tag him. If they do franchise tag him, I think T. Higgins is going to ask for a trade. I think he's tired of being franchise tagged. Just pay him the money.
And, I think if he's franchise tagged, I think it works in the favor of the Patriots to do whatever they want. Personally.
Or Raiders.
Yeah.
But I agree. If he gets tagged, he's going to ask for a trade. And the thing is, you're not going to get as much as you could have in a franchise tag because it's set amount of money.
Watch out for the Bills as well. Buffalo is a big contender for T. Higgins.
What Cincinnati? I think Cincinnati would try. If that's the case, tag them immediately, Cincinnati.
Yeah. So I think the Commanders, T. Higgins, that'd be a scary offense. Be a scary offense.
So scary.
That would be.
Had Philly fans in shambles if that went down.
That's nasty.
That would be such a good game next year.
That is your free agent wide receiver.
T. Higgins goes to Kansas City for a 1-year, $2 million deal.
Just cause.
Just to spite the Bengals.
Just cause.
Just cause,
Just cause.
Well, that's gonna wrap up this episode of the Ball and Beats podcast. Next week, we're gonna be back here with our more NFL free agency talks. Next week, we're talking trenches, we're talking linebackers, we're talking defense, all defense. And the offensive line as well. Look at these things down below that just disappeared. You should go follow on the social media. You should follow us on Spotify. You should subscribe here on YouTube. You should love everyone that's in your life. We'll be back here next week. Take care.
USA. USA.
And peace.
USA. USA.